There's nothing like that Niger vibe. Nigeria thrums with ideas, possibility, culture. But frustration, corruption, and insecurity are also ever present in Africa's most populous nation.
That paradox, those contradictions, go to the heart of an election that is just around the corner. I'm here in Lagos, Nigeria's biggest city, for this Eye on Africa special, ahead of those key February 25th polls. They'll be happening amidst a cash and a fuel crisis that ratcheted up the stakes and sent tempers fraying.
Scarcity of Naira has affected everybody in a tremendous way. Transfer is not going through. I'm not able to get cash. The little cash I can get, nobody's accepting.
The ATMs are not working. Even when you walk into the bank, they will tell you they are not giving that money, that they don't have the cash.
I'm just a little bit fed up of going through this everyday distress. It's just terrible.
You queue for fuel? For your own money that is in your bank, you queue for it.
It's terrible. It's terrible. We are going through hell.
Nigerians are hoping for a recalibration. A record 10 million new voters have registered. 84% of them are under 34. Young people count for more than 2/3 of the 220 million strong population and over 1/3 of all voters.
And that is new. Many stayed away from previous elections. But those impatient for change are now more politically engaged than ever. Nigeria needs to do more to meet the needs of its huge young demographic. For some, enough has already been enough. That's led to a rush amongst its young, educated middle class to look elsewhere for opportunities. Here, the hashtag Japa has grown increasingly popular. It is the Yoruba word for flee.
Jefferson Oshodi has spent years saving up and says he's finally ready to leave Nigeria. His plan is to go back to school in the UK. He's a JP and wants to get a master's in reproductive health. Since Brexit, London has been issuing more study and work visas to foreign doctors.
I've not lived there before, like lived. I've gone for holidays, but I've not lived there. So things are going to be a culture shock for me. I know that all might be because you hear that some doctors or some people that move out, they actually become depressed and all of that. I get that, but to be honest, it's a risk we're all willing to take because we all want better.
Yemisi Salako would also like to study abroad, but that won't be easy as she wants to migrate with her 2 children and her husband. She has to save more than 20,000 euros to cover all the costs. It's a big sacrifice, but one that she's willing to take.
After 5 years, I'm going to be a better person. I would have had the qualification I desired to have. I would have been practicing in the field of my desire. My children would have had the kind of quality education I want them to have.
But there are those who see promise in Nigeria's future. At 26, Kraka Malo is an established talent in the Nigerian music industry. One of his tracks is even on the soundtrack of the movie Black Panther 2. The composer and singer has always lived in Lagos and plans staying as he continues to build his career.
I mean, Nigeria is a beautiful place with like a whole lot of like opportunities. The vibe, the energy, the people, it's home to me. So I love being home. I love, I love the energy, honestly, yes.
The Nigerian middle class is torn between 2 options with no guarantee of success. Stay in Nigeria and try to change the harsh living conditions, or search for greener pastures and better structured system far from home.
It's a very difficult situation for anyone to stay in Nigeria at this point in time, given the current political landscape, the economic landscape, the barriers that we face currently, and it's really asking a lot of young people. Even though where they are going, there's a bit of insecurity in terms of their future. But I encourage young people to stay, like I am staying, because we need a place to call home. But more importantly is that it's asking us to fight for what is ours, to stay behind, and make sure that we are also preparing a place for the next generation of leaders.
Kehinde helps run Leap Africa, an organization aimed at mentoring better leaders for the continent.
Young people have to get involved. They have to be engaged in civic activities. They have to advocate for what is rightly theirs, what they believe in, what they want. It's very important that their voice is also heard.
What is important for Nigeria's young people going into this election?
We are hoping that one of the things that can be solved by this administration and the incoming is insecurity, from militancy to kidnapping, ritual killings, banditry. It's been disaggregated into regions. I would say that each region is facing its own type of terrorism, displacement. This gives people a lot of anxiety as we approach the elections. Will we be able to vote? Is it going to even happen?
Going back to the cash crisis and the petrol crisis, how much of an impact do you think this whole kind of double crisis is going to have on the actual turnout to the election?
Yes, I think that the actual turnout of the elections this year will be very interesting. It's the same. You have high voters numbers, registration numbers, but the turnout is never really the same. And now with the situation of fuel scarcity and naira shortage, we are probably anticipating that people may not be turning out to vote just because they don't have the means to do so, not because they don't want to vote. I believe people are understanding very well that this election is a very decisive one in Nigeria's history. It is very chaotic. People have trouble moving around. People can't get to work. It's also affecting their confidence in the electoral process. It's affecting their confidence in these elections. It's affecting their confidence in the new leadership of this country. Is this what is going to be going forward? Is this what will be subjected to going forward? There's a lack of trust in that, and I do understand it. But it's very important also that we continue to demand for good governance.
Now, normally elections in Nigeria are a two-party race. This year we have the ruling party, the APC, being represented by Bola Tinubu. We have the main opposition party, the PDP, being represented by former VP Atiku Abubakar. But then there's Peter Obi. He is garnering a lot of support from Nigeria's young people. Why do you think that is?
This is my own personal opinion based on what I have seen, based on what I've observed. Young people really want to see something different. Again, we talk about trust. The PDP and APC have an opportunity to rule and govern, and young people are saying they want something different. And I will also say that young people are coming out to support him, in my opinion, because it represents the voices of young people. He's had an interesting gathering of his cabinet. He's been involved in the lives of young people. He's also demonstrated a lot of leadership.
And what do you want to see in Nigeria's future?
I would like to see an inclusive economy. I would like a Nigeria that has enough socioeconomic equity or opportunity, where there is a low barrier between the high class and the low class, where there is still a lot of economic investment from all parties, from all sectors, where we have a thriving economy, where we are able to export and produce. You know, I would really love to see a Nigeria that is able to cater to the needs of its people.
More digital transformation is essential to Nigeria's economic evolution. There's already a lot of promise in the burgeoning tech ecosystem. Between 2015 and 2022, tech startups here secured over $2 billion in funding, the most in Africa.
Founded in 2016, Flutterwave is already one of Africa's top 3 financial technology platforms. In tackling the challenges of online payment in Nigeria, the startup's growth has exceeded the dreams of its 3 founders. Flutterwave has become a multi-billion-dollar company.
Our focus is really just solving the customer's problem, and the opportunity to solve that problem exists, and there's a huge gap in Lagos, in Nigeria, And that's what we're solving one at a time, across corporates, across SMEs, across individuals.
This young developer is inspired by companies like Flutterwave, Opay, and Jumia. These digital giants of Africa were all created in Lagos. Paul has given up his science studies to design apps full-time. He works with clients in Nigeria and the US.
The day I received the news that my work was going to Harvard Business School, and I was like really ecstatic about it. And yes, it's a feeling that you cannot just, people seeing your work, people like using your work day to day is one of the things that keeps me going in this career path.
The Africa NST Forum brings together thousands of developers and innovators. Fewer turned out this year because of Nigeria's Naira and petrol crisis. But the annual Lagos date is still a key gathering for those interested in Pan-African technological development and creativity.
I don't think that there's anywhere else like in the world that's quite as dynamic with such a high concentration of like people, Black people, African people trying to like do good things, trying to launch businesses.
The sector has potential, but investment and infrastructure for Nigeria's digital revolution still falls short here. Yet Lagos still ranks amongst the world's top 100 host cities for tech startups.
Nigeria's startups haven't left its more traditional sectors behind. Agri-tech is booming. Nigeria may be Africa's biggest oil producer, but agriculture contributes more to GDP. In 2021, that was about 23% versus about 7% for oil. All three of the favorites in this election have made much about the potential economic payoff to be had by more cultivation of the agricultural sector. It's already responsible for more than a third of jobs, some at that intersection of tech and agriculture, with more potentially to be harvested, with more agribusiness investment into diversification, into things like the processing of raw produce.
The sweetener sorbitol is made in these industrial tanks. It comes from processed cassava and is the core of Yemisi Lario's business. She sources her tuber from around 5,000 producers who live around her factory. The business model is the first of its kind in Africa and second in the world.
When we came in here, this place was all forest. Nothing was here. There was not even road to get in here. But today, all the villages around, we've been able to give them power and water, livelihood. They are able to send their children to school.
Sartre has a turnover of 10 million euros and has grown from a small farm to a cassava empire in Nigeria. 950 kilometers from Yemisi factory, Vivian Akpala supervises work in a rice field. In 2020, she launched a farmers cooperative and has since trained locals in agricultural techniques.
I can actually plant a grain and get a million, and that million can fetch me a whole lot of money that I can never think of or imagine within a very short period of time.
Rice production has exploded in Kano State. Alhaji Leti Bala's grain mill operates 7 days a week with at least 100 customers at a cost of 4.6 euros per bag. That's a minimum of 500 euros revenue per day. His investment has more than paid off.
It's important for us as citizens to return to farming so that we can help to grow the nation. Especially those unemployed people. We should all come together to move the nation forward.
Agriculture constitutes 22.35% the total GDP of Nigeria in early 2021, and therefore an economic activity which cannot be neglected.
Nigeria's biggest biggest asset is its people. From musicians to intellectuals to entrepreneurs to designers, they leave their mark wherever they go. Unlike the Naira, Nigeria's creative capital is abundant. With me, we have Kenneth, who is an award-winning director. Kenneth, thanks so much for coming to speak to us. What, for you, is the importance of this election to Nigeria's cultural community, the industry at large?
I would say that as a creative operating in Nigeria, this is almost the best time to be working, because we have a lot of Hollywood studios in the form of streamers coming to invest in Nigeria. And so for me, and wherever people are investing, they always want to see that the environment is really stable in terms of security and all of that. And if you understand, the African political space, the handing over, the proper handing over of power to the next government, if it is actually done, well and thoroughly, what happens is that it shows that there's a form of stability and peace in that particular country. And so for me, what this election means is if we don't really have that sort of stability, it's going to take the creative industry 10 years back, because a lot of people will not be really interested in investing in a place where they know that politically it's not very stable. So that is why this election is really important to me as a cultural person.
Anywhere Nigerians go, they leave an impression. Why do you think the country's had such a large global cultural footprint?
I would actually say that Nigerians are extremely creative people. And so, and what we've always talked about from the beginning is we always need the right environment to operate in. And so, and because of that whole versatility, you will see that wherever they are, because those countries are really stable, you can actually see that creativity come to the fore. And I will say that we're really hardworking too as a people, and we always don't believe in the big government. We always believe in the fact that once you just create a very safe space for us, we can actually operate there well. So that is why you'll see that we have all of that, cultural footprint everywhere around the world, because we are also a diverse country, culturally, right? I come from central Nigeria, where I think we have almost 70 ethnic groups. So when you think about that, if we just mix all of these cultures together and you have an experience of that, what happens is it just makes you really strong, culturally, because you have a bit of everything.
Well, we wish you the very best for the election. Thanks very much for making the time to speak to us.
Thank you. Yes.
Nigeria's huge creative reach, economy and population means that its influence goes far beyond its borders. This election will be a barometer for democracy across the region. And as the giant of Africa prepares to take its next steps, the rest of the world can't afford to be indifferent to their direction.